Hello, and welcome to this presentation entitled Who's the Wife? Finding 19th Century Maiden Surnames Using Marriage Records, the General Register Office, Censuses, and just plain common sense. For the most part, when genealogists discuss the importance of identifying the maiden surname of a person's wife or mother, it is so her pedigree can be taken back another generation. This is the primary reason to discover a woman's maiden name. However, my focus for this presentation today is to show how identifying a wife and mother is vital in constructing and deconstructing families on Family Search Family Tree. My examples are from England, but some of the principles can be applied in other countries also. Hopefully you'll forgive some anachronisms, especially in the clothing, and also the fact that I am piggybacking on a couple of previous presentations where I used this same example. This was a case of deconstructing a family on Family Search Family Tree. It is not unique. I come upon similar situations in Family Search Family Tree almost daily. So let's jump in. Meet William and Sarah Beaumont, an amazing couple. William was born in Rickmansworth, Hertfordshire. He and Sarah were married in Bristol. They had 23 children. Some were born in Rickmansworth, Hertfordshire. Some were born in Yorkshire, Rotherham, Thornhill, and Bolby-cum-Hexthorpe. Some were born in Cambridgeshire, Swavesey, and Stoke-on-Quye. And a fragmented fictional version of the family appeared on the 1851 and 1861 census in London, which was attached to them in Family Tree. Clearly, this was not one family. In actuality, there were 6 different William and Sarah Beaumont couples. Inexperienced researchers either did a bad merge or did not realize that it is possible for several men called William Beaumont to all marry women named Sarah. They assumed there was only one William and Sarah Beaumont in the whole of England and attached all 23 children to them. This whole mixed-up family could have been avoided had the places of birth been examined and the maiden names of the wives of the family been researched when the children were added. Correct places of birth or christening are essential when constructing or deconstructing a family. In past centuries in England, most people lived their lives in the towns or villages where they were born, or at least neighbouring towns. As a rule, parents did not have children in one village, then have children in another county, then move back to the original place or somewhere else. Children being born all over the country is usually a red flag that something is wrong. Along with the place, the most important thing when deconstructing mixed-up families is discovering and adding the maiden surname of the wife or mother. Before we look at strategies to find the wife's maiden name, I want to look at some general principles. No matter how unusual the last name of your ancestor, or even the first name for that matter, it is almost 100% certain that there is more than one person with his or her same name, even more so with common names. One reason for this is because often brothers all name their children with familial names. Couple this with the lack of imagination when it comes to first names. You get male names such as William, Thomas, George, Henry, Robert, and female names like Mary, Sarah, Elizabeth, Martha, Anne being used over and over again. As a result, in the same town, you could have several cousins, all bearing the same name and being born about the same time. As an example, a few days ago, I was adding a granddaughter to the William, Beaumont, and Sarah Thompson family that I had found on a census. The granddaughter's name was Hilda Spate. I thought it a rather unusual last name, but in spite of this, I was getting hints from Family Search that didn't seem to fit the profile of this child, who appeared to have died shortly after birth. So I decided to double check on the General Register Office website. The General Register Office allows you to search their historical birth and death indexes and order copies of registrations. Civil registration in England and Wales started in 1837. As well as the person's full name, year and quarter of birth, and registration district, it includes the mother's maiden name and references needed to order the certificate. With Hilda Spate being a unique name, both first name to some degree and the last name, I was surprised to find 6 children named Hilda Spate being born within a 5-year period, 5 of them in Yorkshire. Armed with that thought, I decided to see how many William Beaumonts would be born in a 20-year period. I chose when civil registration in England started with the September quarter 1837 and went to the December quarter 1857. I plugged that information into FreeBMD, which is a site with a free transcription of the indexes to births, marriages and deaths for England and Wales. The search parameters on FreeBMD are more robust than the GRO website, but it did not give the mother's maiden name. Here are just a few of the 347 William Beaumonts that were born in England during that time period. Then I decided to see how many William Beaumonts married a woman called Sarah 20 years later, again with a 20-year period, September quarter 1857 to December quarter 1877. I plugged that information into FreeBMD and came up with 34 William and Sarah Beaumont couples. Obviously, these are not perfect figures. Some of those entries were possibly duplicate entries, and not all 347 William Beaumonts born made it to adulthood or married, but it still does show that there are more than just a few William and Sarah Beaumont couples in that particular time period. So back to finding the wife's maiden name. What are the best strategies for finding those somewhat elusive maiden names? Here are some strategies I have found invaluable when searching for the maiden surname of the mother. Number 1 is marriage records. Marriage records are often the only records that will give the mother's maiden name. Look for the marriage records shortly before or around the time of the birth or christening of the first child. It will usually be before the christening of the first child, but not always, and often it will be only a few months before the first child is born. Here we see William Beaumont and Sarah Thompson getting married on the 1st of December 1833, with their son, John, being christened 6 months later on the 22nd of June 1834. This family group on Family Search looks complete. The parents were married in 1848 and the first child was born in 1849. However, more careful research on the 1851 census reveals an additional child, a son Charles, born 2 years before the parents were married. We'll be looking at Charles again in just a minute. A pre-1837 marriage record will show the couple, their marital condition and place of residence, but no father's name is mentioned. The 2 witnesses who signed at the bottom can sometimes give clues to who the parents were. After 1837, more information can be found, including the father's name of the bride and groom, their occupations as well as that of their father, their marital status, and sometimes an exact age. Traditionally, the couple were married in the town where the bride was from. This may not be the town where the children were born. Sometimes the first child was born in the town of the marriage, but subsequent children were born in a neighbouring town or the town where the father was from. Don't assume that because you have only found one child, the one from whom you descend, that he or she is the only child or first child. The child you are related to could be a child in the middle or the youngest child. This may seem a very elementary concept, but I see this mistake made time and time again. A researcher looks for parents of his or her ancestor only and attaches the wrong parents based on the date of the birth or christening of that one child. It is important to construct the whole family, not just follow the child you descend from. So look for other children. Along with that, don't assume that the only child listed on a census is the first child. There could be a child who died between censuses or before the first census was taken. The couple could have had many children before the census, and they could have all died or moved on. Look at the age of the parents. Most people started having children in their early 20s. If the couple are in their 50s by the time of the census and only one child is living with them, then that child is probably their youngest child. Children can give clues to their mother's maiden name. Often at least one child has a mother or grandmother's maiden name as their first or middle name. Use that name to search for the wife that married someone with the father's name. Here again is Charles Beaumont. The 1851 census indicates his birth year as 1846. His christening in 1849 records his name as Charles Champney Beaumont. It looks like his middle name might be the maiden surname of his mother. As he was born after July 1837, a good way to find the mother's maiden name is to look for his birth in the General Register Office website. Before checking the GRO, make sure you know which registration district covers the town where the child was christened or where they resided. This will help to identify them. To find the registration district, you can use the 1851 England jurisdiction map or put into Google the village or town and county followed by registration district. Charles was baptized in Bolby-cum-Hexthorpe, which is in the Doncaster registration district. In checking Charles's name on the GRO during the 5-year period from 1845 through 1849, none of the Charles Beaumonts seem to fit the profile. The most likely reason for this is the closer you are in time to 1837, the inception of registering births, marriage and deaths, the higher the chance that the child's birth was not registered. Registration was not made compulsory until an act in 1874, and so it took a while for people to comply with registering their children. After 1875, a fee was charged for non-compliance, and that made birth registrations become more consistent. A good rule of thumb is to choose a child with a more unusual name who was the latest one born. That way you'll have a better chance of being able to identify the child. Here's another child of that same family born 12 years later than Charles. She has a first and middle name, Mary Elizabeth Beaumont. In checking for Mary Elizabeth Beaumont on the GRO 12 years later, during the 5-year period from 1856 to 1860, I found her born in Doncaster in 1858 with a mother's maiden surname of Champney. Here was good evidence that Champney was Sarah's maiden name, as suspected. Here is the complete family group with Sarah Lillyman Champney as the wife of William Beaumont, along with her mother and father and siblings. Interesting to note that Sarah has the middle name of her mother's maiden name. Here too is the monumental inscription showing Charles and Mary Elizabeth Beaumont and 5 of their siblings, who all died young. Only 3 of their 10 children made it to adulthood. Here are some important hints in searching the GRO site. Where the name is concerned, always use the similar-sounding variations. Never use the exact name search. Even though using similar-sounding variations will bring up more hits, your search will not be effective if you use exact name. Always use the plus or minus 2 years, especially if you are going by a possible birth date from a census. Know that the census age is usually off by a year or 2, so search at least a 5-year span. If you have too many hints and you are pretty sure you know the registration district, you can enter that to limit your research results. If you have no luck finding your person, try the phonetically similar variation. Most of the time, it's not enough to check just one child on the GRO. When there are several children born in the same place with the same name, the maiden name of the mother is the only way to distinguish them. In this case, especially, you will want to check out each child on the GRO and find the maiden name that is consistent for each of those children. Censuses can be a goldmine in piecing together information about the wife or mother's maiden name. It is important to look at every census for every person in the family. Inevitably, a widowed mother-in-law, father-in-law, or brother-in-law or unmarried sister-in-law will end up living with the husband of the woman whose maiden name we are searching for. Be cautious here. If the daughter's father died at a young age, her mother could have remarried and would therefore not have the maiden name of her daughter. Which brings me to a side note. Another possibility, if you can't find the marriage of the couple, is to research to see if the husband died early. If so, the wife often remarried. If she remarried after 1837, you can find her father's name listed on her second marriage record, which will give her maiden name. Here is Sarah Platt's second marriage to William Hunter, showing her father, John Platt. Time will not allow us to talk about strategies you can use to track down maiden names in earlier time periods and other countries. Check for resources in the Family Search Wiki or at the Family History Guide for specific help. I hope the ideas discussed today will help you find maiden names as you construct your own family or as you deconstruct mixed up families on Family Search Family Tree. Thanks for watching.